Okay everyone, back with part 4 of the Crysis 2 review. Two more categories to address, and that is level design as well as the graphics in this game. So we're going to start with level design. And first of all, your objective is basically a blue thing on your mini-map and in front of you. It's just hovering in the air, it's a blue dot, and it's where you're supposed to go. And it tells you your distance from it, okay? But 9 times out of 10, that's not clear where it is. And what I mean is, sometimes the blue dot will be hovering on a building, but you won't know if it's the first floor, if it's the second floor, if it's the roof, if it's inside the building. The game doesn't make it clear. There's no real waypoint system in the game. You know, it marks where you're supposed to go, but it doesn't make it clear at all, you know, where that waypoint is. It doesn't tell you, and sometimes it'll look like it's on a building, but it's actually behind the building, and you don't know that until you're basically in the building running around like an idiot, and you realize that it's actually behind the building, or it's a level above you, or something like that, and you don't even know. And half the time you don't know where you're going. So, you know, that plays into a lot of things. If you're in cloak mode and you're trying to sneak by and get to your objective and you don't know where to go, you're screwed, because your energy will run out and then you're going to die. You know, if you're running through and trying to escape something and you don't know where to go. So it's pretty bad. The waypoint system really doesn't exist. It gives you a blue dot and you're supposed to know where it is and how to get to it, which, you know, like I said, most of the time you don't. You just have to trial and error until you find it. And the last thing I want to talk about that I have a gameplay example to give you is the fact that it's misleading. For instance, I was in an upstairs room that I got to by elevator. The elevator disappears, so you can't get down there. The windows are barred up, so you can't get out. So you're pretty much stuck in this room, and you're fighting a helicopter. Well, you shoot the helicopter down, and it comes and crashes through where you are, the upper level, and crashes through the floor into a lower level of the building. And you can get down there, obviously, and you're thinking, okay, well, there was no way I could have gotten out of the building before, so obviously this thing crashed through into the floor. Let me jump down a level where it is, and I can probably get out. Well, you jump down there, and it's a pretty extensive area, and there's actually a collectible souvenir, which are the collectibles in the game in that area. But you walk around down there long enough, and you realize there's no way out. You can't get out from down there, so you're like, okay, how in the world, you know, do I get out then? I couldn't get out up top. I jumped down here in the helicopter, there's a souvenir, and I can't get out. So you're like, well, I must have to go back up and go out the way that the helicopter crashed in. So you try to get back up, and I tried it 3 or 4 times. You can't. I would try to get on the helicopter and jump back up, and it wouldn't let me. It kept knocking me off. I'd get on top of the helicopter, it was on fire for one, so I'd start getting hit, and then I'd try to jump up, and it wouldn't let me. And I tried that 3 or 4 times. I said, well, that can't be the way. There's got to be a way out from down here, and there isn't. So finally, I said, the only way to get out of this place is up top, I'm convinced. So I kept trying and trying, and finally basically glitched my way up to the 2nd floor. You know, after jumping and jumping and jumping, I finally, like I said, glitched my way back up there. And yeah, that's the way you're supposed to get out. So you're telling me that the helicopter crashes through the floor, that's not the way to get out. There is a collectible down there, so obviously you're supposed to be able to get down there, but then you can't get back up. You can't get back out to where you're supposed to leave without glitching back up. There's no clear way to get back up to the 2nd floor. You basically have to jump and keep jumping and getting burned by this helicopter and everything else, and glitch your way back up to the 2nd floor to get out. That makes no sense. You mean you're going to have an area with a collectible, but then you're not going to be able to get out, you know, without glitching your way to the exit? You know, it doesn't, again, no sense. It makes none. You know, how do you have a collectible area, but then there's no clear way to get back up to where you're supposed to go to proceed with the game? I don't know. So the level design is bad. Moving on to the graphics, you know, it says right on the box of Crysis 2, I saw in DSP's unboxing video, it says right on the box of Crysis 2 from a reviewer, best looking game on console ever. It says that directly on the box. So let's test that, shall we? We know how good the graphics were in Crysis 1. How about in Crysis 2? Well, I'll be honest with you. The graphics, yeah, they were pretty good. The graphics were great, but they weren't any better than any of the other graphics. I mean, they were pretty much standard. I mean, that's pretty much the standard nowadays, isn't it? To have really good HD graphics. I mean, pretty much every FPS that comes out now has really good graphics, and these graphics were, again, on par with them, but they didn't beat them. I mean, there are plenty of games I've played on PS3 that looked way better. I mean, you know, Uncharted 2 is still, in my opinion, the best looking game on console ever. Red Dead Redemption was beautiful, and this game, yeah, the graphics were good, but I mean, it was on par. It was like the same on par with like Killzone 3, like Singularity. You know, I mean, all these other FPS games, the Fear 2, I mean, all these games, they kind of had the same graphics. I mean, yeah, they're really good, but it's not the best looking on console by any means. I don't even know why they're saying that. And this is what really gets me, and I'm going to talk about it. The game is filled with bugs and glitches. To go along with their best looking game on console, garbage. And here's why. I obviously played the game on PS3, and I've watched not all, but a good part of DSP's playthrough on Xbox 360. And I'm going to go and talk about the glitches that I had on mine and the ones that he had on his, because they're different. Anyway, on mine, on the PS3 version, some glitches. Your pretty standard stuff. Enemies getting stuck in walls. Sometimes there's an interesting glitch where you're walking around with a weapon, and you do something and try to pull out your weapon, you have no gun. If you do have a gun, you can't fire it. It locks up and you can't shoot, so you die instantly. A couple of other ones would be texture issues. There's a lot of texturing issues with this game. Things not loading properly, or things... there was one part where I would walk a little way and there'd be smoke, and then I'd walk like an inch to the left and the smoke would vanish, and it kept going back and forth. Stuff like that. There are cars that are obviously wrecked and aren't operable, sitting in the middle of the road, but for some reason their tires are spinning 1,000 miles an hour without stopping. For some reason, the cars are destroyed, yet their tires are spinning like crazy. I don't know why. An interesting glitch that happened to me, I was fighting a giant walker robot type thing, and I was trying to throw C4 at it and blow it up, and one of the ones I threw the C4 and hit detonate, and nothing happened. I was like, where the hell did my C4 go? Well, I looked, the C4 that I threw was floating in midair. I threw it and it went about 2 feet and stuck in midair, and it was hovering, and I kept hitting detonate, nothing would happen, so I walked a little bit closer to it, hit detonate again, it explodes in midair and does massive damage to me. So I was like, well, that's good. Another problem, I was in a room and the floor fell out of it, and when it did, everything that was standing there didn't fall with it. It was just floating in midair, like anti-gravity, and I made a joke. I was like, look, it's an anti-grav room. And I was able to walk around and melee these people who were just floating in the air and knock them to the ground, and it was hilarious. Frame rates are a huge issue with this game. The frame rates, basically when there's a bunch of stuff going on the screen, the frame rates, woo, go right to shit. Completely down the toilet. Frame rates are awful, and you can't do anything. So that's the PS3. Now let's look at Xbox 360 with DSP. Pretty much all the same glitches I talked about. You know, the car's tires moving was actually one I saw on his as well. The gun disappearing. The physics engine being messed up. There was stuff floating on his playthrough. Weird stuff like that. A couple more, you know, interesting and unique ones I saw was actually there was one part where there was a cutscene on his where the alien ship flies over and drops some aliens, and you know, it's supposed to initiate a battle, but it's a cutscene, so the ship flies over, it drops the aliens, you look, and then all of a sudden it cuts back to the sky, the same dropship flies back and redrops the same aliens. The cutscene replays itself. I've never seen that happen in my life. It's pretty awful. And it was hilarious, but it's another giant glitch. Then there was one where he was in a building, and you know, it wasn't a cutscene, but obviously it's supposed to happen, you're not supposed to see it coming. There was a human standing up a little ways, and as you're walking, an alien pops up, grabs the human, breaks his neck, and throws him on the ground. So anyway, it's like, okay, and then DSP played the level, he got killed, so he went back to the checkpoint, which was before that happened with the alien, so he knew it was going to happen. So he walked up and the alien came out and grabbed the dude. Well, DSP shoots and kills the alien, you know, holding the guy. The alien falls to the ground dead, but the guy, the human, remains floating in midair, and all of a sudden his neck snaps and he falls to the ground dead. So he basically murders himself. He telekinetically snaps his own neck and while he's levitating. That's pretty hilarious. You kill the alien, but you don't save the guy. He just floats like, and falls to the ground with no explanation as to why. Like I said, he telekinetically snaps his own neck. And then the one that I saw that is completely inexcusable in any first-person shooter ever, especially when you're saying that you have the best-looking game on console, which is a giant hilarity. He was in an area and there was an entire building, I kid you not, an entire building that would flash in and out of existence on his screen. And it wasn't in the distance, it was part of the battlefield, and it was flashing, it would flicker in and out of existence. It would pop out of thin air and then go away, and then pop back on. And there was an alien in the window, and when it would vanish, the alien was floating in midair, walking around, and then the building would pop back on, and he's in the window, and then it pops off. And it's like, I mean, this is inexcusable for this day and age for an FPS. The only kind of games where, you know, stuff like that materializing in front of you would be a game like a Fallout, which the game is so big that it can't, you know, have all the buildings on the screen loaded at one time, or your system would explode. So in those type of giant open world games, you know, random generation, spontaneous generation is acceptable, because you can't have all the stuff loaded on the screen at one time. So yeah, as you're walking, a sign may appear in front of you. But on an FPS game, you know, when it's level based, when it's not giant open world, and when you're saying on the front of your box that you have the best looking game on console, and you have complete buildings that flash in and out, I mean, that is completely, you know, inexcusable in this day and age for FPS, and it's awful. I mean, so basically on the front of the box, they're lying to the consumer. Well, they're not actually lying per se. They found a very clever way around it. They put somebody else's review of their game on the front of their box, so they wouldn't be accused of saying that, you know, their own game has the best looking graphics. That's what they think. They think that their game is the best looking on console. They found some kind of clever way to get around it, but that's what they're saying. So it's lying to you on the front of the box. It's not the best looking game on console. It's actually the buggiest first person shooter I've ever played in my life, and I'm being completely serious. Inexcusable errors in the texturing and graphics of this game. So that'll do it for the categories. What I'm going to do when I come back is I have, like I said, that official game review up here that somebody wrote about the game. I'm going to read through it and basically rip it apart like I have everything else, and give you a perfect reason why these game reviewers, these professional reviewers, lie to the consumer, and why I'm doing what I'm doing with these game reviews. So be sure to come back for part 5, where I'm going to do the game review, reading it, and show you guys what somebody else is saying about this game.